good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Lieutenant Chris Boardman. We warmly welcome the family of Private Ronald Edward Eagleton, whose story will be told shortly. We also welcome those family members watching online at home. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand for the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting, 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Ronald Edward Eagleton. Ronald Eagleton, known to his friends and family as Ronnie, was born in the Sydney suburb of Glebe on the 29th of June 1924, the younger of two children of Edward and Gladys Eagleton. He attended Hurstville South Primary School and then Hurstville Technical College. A keen cyclist, carpenter's craftsman, and small bore target rifle shooter, Ronald was intelligent and academically inclined and wanted to attend university. As this was beyond the means of his family, he instead worked briefly as a clerk in a wool handling store and paraded part-time with the 45th Battalion, which was then a volunteer militia force. Eagleton was determined to join the army as soon as he could. This he did in March 1942, claiming to be 22 years old when he was actually 17. After training at Holsworthy in Ingleburn, he was allotted to reinforcements to the 2nd 16th Battalion, which was in action on the Kokoda Trail. When Private Eagleton landed in Port Moresby in early December 1942, the 2nd 16th Battalion had been forced to fight a series of desperate actions back along the trail. It suffered particularly heavy at Mission Ridge in early September when it had to fight its way out of a Japanese encirclement. It joined operations at Gona in November with only 2 companies and left on the 7th of January 1943, just 56 men strong. The 2nd 16th returned to Australia in mid-January, during which time Eagleton had treatment for a fractured bone in his foot. He was back in Papua by early August. The 2nd 16th spent a month training near Port Moresby before moving to New Guinea to play a minor role in the Lae operations in mid-September. It then moved by air to the Ramal Valley and advanced to Dumpu. In the following months, the battalion was involved in patrol actions in the upper reaches of the Ramal Valley and into the Finisterre Range. Its greatest achievement was the capture of Shaggy Ridge in late December. During a period of illness, which was eventually diagnosed as malarial fever, on the 18th of November 1943, Eagleton was transferred to Z Special Unit and returned to Australia for training in Queensland and Western Australia. Z Special Unit was a joint Allied Special Forces unit formed to operate behind Japanese lines in Southeast Asia. Specialising in reconnaissance and sabotage, members of the unit were chiefly Australian, but included British, Dutch, New Zealand, Timorese and Indonesian members. While the covert operations of Z Special Unit would take place mostly in Borneo, Eagleton and 7 other commandos were tasked with investigating the Japanese defences on Mushu Island in Papua New Guinea. This they would achieve by capturing a Japanese officer for interrogation and discovering the location of 2 naval guns on the island that covered the approaches to Wewak Harbour. On the night of the 11th of April 1945, the group was dropped off near Mushu Island with 4 military foalboats. The 4 collapsible canoes were pushed south by currents and came ashore amid a surf break, swamped and having lost some equipment. At daybreak, they began reconnaissance of the island and encountered Japanese who had found their equipment that had washed ashore. The island became a hunting ground. The team tried to escape the island on a makeshift raft that soon came apart. They then left the island on logs, hoping to be seen the next day by reconnaissance planes. The bodies of officers were washed up on the nearby Kairuru Island and were buried by locals. Eagleton and another commando drifted onto Kairuru Island at different locations. There they hid until they were discovered and captured by the Japanese on the 20th of April. They were beaten, executed, and then their bodies were hidden. Without knowledge of their fate, it was assumed that the pair had drowned. It wasn't until almost 70 years later that a lengthy investigation by the Army's Unrecovered War Casualties Unit discovered new evidence. On the 1st of May 2013, the bodies of Lance Corporal Spencer Walklate and Private Ronald Eagleton were located. The 2 were buried with military honours in front of their families and a guard of Special Forces soldiers at Port Moresby War Cemetery. The sole survivor of the operation, former sapper Edgar Dennis, attended, and soldiers from the 1st Commando Regiment, the 2nd Commando Regiment and the Special Air Service Regiment, units that descended from Z Special Unit, formed the funeral party. Ronald Eagleton's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Ronald Edward Eagleton, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.